Things were far from peaceful in Odai. Tensions were rising, as the forces of rival kingdoms gathered to claim Odai's wealth and power. For Eze Mmiri, the peace of the kingdom was no longer just a responsibility, it was a matter of love. He had fallen deeply in love with Adaobi, a human woman from a nearby village. Theirs was a love that transcended the boundaries between land and sea. Yet, Adaobi's existence in the underwater world was limited. She could not stay beneath the waves for too long, and it had become clear to both Eze Mmiri and Adaobi that something had to be done. The magic potion which the ancient wise old turtle gave her will only last for a week. Adaobi stood beside Eze Mmiri on a rocky outcrop, her hand resting gently on her stomach. The faint swell of her belly was evidence of the child they had conceived together. 3 months pregnant, even though the pregnancy was growing faster than normal, Adaobi felt the stirrings of life within her, and it filled her with both joy and fear. Eze Mmiri, do you think this journey will truly work? Will I be able to live under the water, to be with you forever? She asked, her voice soft with uncertainty. Mmiri turned to her, his eyes full of love and reassurance. I believe in us, Adaobi. The love bracelet is the key. Once we find it, everything will change. You will be able to live with me beneath the sea, and our child will have both the land and the water in their blood. Adaobi nodded, though doubts lingered in her heart. I trust you. I've trusted you from the moment we met, and I will follow you wherever you go. Before they set off, King Eze called his son aside, his face etched with concern. Mmiri, my son, he said, his voice thick with worry. I have recovered from my illness, but I fear that what lies ahead may be even more dangerous than you realize. Mmiri and her father are determined to take everything from us. They will not rest until Odai is in their hands. I know, father, Mmiri replied, his voice filled with determination. But we must try. Adaobi and I will find the love bracelets. Once we do, our child will be born of both worlds. It will bring peace to our people. King Eze placed a hand on his son's shoulder. You are my pride, Eze Mmiri. But remember, the sea is unpredictable. No matter how prepared you are, there will always be challenges. The magic of the love bracelets is powerful, but it is not without its dangers. Adaobi stepped forward, her gaze steady and strong. We will face whatever comes together. I am part of this kingdom now. We will not fail. Fengquo's eyes softened, and he nodded. Very well. You have my blessing, both of you. Take this with you. He turned to the wise ancient turtle, who had been silently observing their conversation. The ancient turtle slowly approached them, carrying a vial filled with glowing liquid. This potion, the wise old turtle said in his deep rumbling voice, will allow Adaobi to survive beneath the water for a short time. 1 week. It is a gift from the sea itself. But once the time is up, she must return to the surface. Use it wisely. Adaobi took the vial from the wise old turtle, her hands trembling slightly. Thank you, she whispered, though she knew that she would soon face unimaginable challenges. We will not let you down. With the potion in hand and hearts full of resolve, Eze Mmiri and Adaobi set off on their perilous journey. They swam through the vast ocean, their movements fluid and graceful, yet the weight of the task before them hung heavy in the water. For days, they ventured into the deep, following the path that the ancient turtle had described. The water grew colder, and the sea creatures around them became more ominous. But despite the danger, they pressed on, determined to find the love bracelets and secure their future. Meanwhile, in the rival kingdom of Ifeanyi, Princess Eze paced in her private chambers, her golden tail swaying with each step. Her serpent seer coiled at her side, its milky eyes gleaming with malevolent foresight. The time is now, Eze said, her voice cold. With Eze Mmiri gone, Odai will be easy to conquer. Her father, Ifeanyi, entered with a menacing smile. Your victory is near, daughter. I will help you claim Odai, and with it, all the riches and power that come with it. Once Eze Mmiri is out of the way, Odai will belong to us. The serpent seer hissed softly. But be warned, princess, There is more to this battle than mere power. The child born of love will rise against you. If they think they can challenge me, they are wrong," Eze sneered. "Prepare for war. We attack at dawn." On the 5th day of Eze Mmiri and Adaobi's journey, as they ventured deeper into the ocean's heart, a violent storm struck. The water churned violently, and massive waves slammed against them, pushing them farther away from their intended path. "Adaobi," Mmiri shouted over the roar of the storm. "Hold on to me. The current is too strong. I can't hold on much longer," Adaobi cried out, struggling to keep her grip on Mmi's tail as the sea seemed to try and swallow them whole. "It's too powerful." Despite the storm's fury, Mmiri refused to let go. "Stay with me, Adaobi. Trust the sea. It will protect us." As they struggled against the tempest, the water seemed to respond to Eze Mmiri's words. The current shifted slightly, allowing them to find shelter beneath a large rock formation. The storm raged above, but below they were safe. Adaobi's chest rose and fell rapidly as she tried to catch her breath, still shaken from the battle with the storm. "We made it," she whispered in awe, looking up at Eze Mmiri. "The sea listened to you." Eze smiled, his heart swelling with pride and relief. "The sea is alive, Adaobi. It protects those who respect it." Back in Odai, disaster struck. Princess Eze's forces descended like a storm, swift and merciless. Her army, fierce and relentless, tore through the defenses of the once proud kingdom. The tranquil waters that once surrounded Odai now churned with chaos, littered with the remnants of a desperate battle. Inquo, despite his age and frailty, stood defiantly at the forefront. His golden trident gleamed with a fierce determination as he addressed his warriors. "This is our home," he bellowed. "We will not let it fall without a fight. Stand strong, Odai." At the head of the invading forces, Princess Eze Mmiri moved with the grace and ferocity of a predator. Her dark skin glistened in the dim underwater light, her eyes burning with determination. Beside her swam Obi Afani, his cruel grin cutting through the murky waters like a blade. "This kingdom was never meant for the weak," Obi sneered, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "Today we take what was always ours." Kiwa hovered close to Eze Mmiri, his younger sister. His face was a mask of anguish and urgency. "We must leave," he urged her. "We have no chance against them." "But father," Ace's voice cracked, her eyes wide with fear and defiance. "Father will hold them back," Kiwa said, grabbing her by the arm. "You know we cannot win this. Call him. He has to know we're leaving." Eze Mmiri turned back to the battle, her heart breaking. "Father," she cried, her voice carrying through the tumult of the battle. Tears streaked her face as she watched Inquo, standing tall and fearless against the oncoming tide. Inquo turned, his eyes locking with hers one last time. "Go," he roared, his voice filled with both command and love. "Save Odai's future. I will always be with you." "No," Eze Mmiri choked, her hands trembling. She wanted to fight, to stay and defend her father, but Iziua was already pulling her away. "Move, Eze," Kiwa shouted, his tone leaving no room for argument. He led her and a small group of survivors through the dark, churning waters. The distant sounds of battle grew fainter as they swam deeper into the unknown. Behind them, Eze Mmiri launched himself into the fray, his golden trident spinning with deadly precision. He fought like a man possessed, determined to buy his children the time they needed to escape. For every enemy he struck down, two more seemed to take their place. As the group of refugees swam on, Eze glanced back, her heart heavy with guilt and sorrow. "We can't leave him," she whispered. "We have to," Iziua said grimly, his jaw clenched. "Father knew this was the only way. We'll find safety, and when we're stronger we'll come back." The waters ahead grew colder and darker, the promise of safety uncertain. But the determination in Iziua's voice carried a flicker of hope. Together they would find refuge, and perhaps one day reclaim the kingdom that was stolen from them. The underwater palace of Odamurai was in chaos. Princess Eze stood in the center of a swirling vortex of dark energy, her eyes gleaming with malice. She raised her hand, and the released sea spirit, Mommy Anya, appeared before her, bound by an unspoken debt. "You owe me, Mommy Anya," Princess Eze declared, her voice steady and cold. "I freed you from the chains that bound you. Now you must help me destroy King Eze and take over Odamurai." Mommy Anya's glowing eyes narrowed as she considered her words. Without hesitation, she nodded. "As you command, Princess. Let the king prepare to meet his doom." With a burst of speed, Mommy Anya charged into the royal throne room, where King Eze stood, his trident glowing with power. The king stood, his eyes filled with determination as Mommy Anya lunged at him. "So, the traitorous spirit has come," King Eze bellowed. He swung his trident, sending a wave of golden energy toward Mommy Anya. She dodged, hissing as she retaliated with a blast of her own dark magic. The throne room shook as the two forces collided. The battle was fierce. King Eze fought with the strength of 100 warriors, his trident striking blow after blow. Mommy Anya, though powerful, began to falter under his relentless assault. With a mighty roar, the king swung his trident, and a massive strike sent Mommy Anya crashing into the palace walls. She slumped to the ground, lifeless. Princess Eze, watching from the shadows, clenched her fists in frustration. Her serpent seer slithered up to her, its milky white eyes glowing with sinister intent. "Princess," the serpent hissed, "I foresaw this. The king is strong, but I have come prepared." The serpent revealed a golden, poisonous knife, its edge gleaming with deadly venom. "This blade will weaken him. Strike him now, and he will fall." With trembling hands, Princess Eze grasped the knife and stepped forward. As King Eze turned, triumphant over Mommy Anya's defeat, she lunged, stabbing him in the back. The golden knife pierced his scales, and he let out a roar of pain. He whirled around, throwing her off with a single powerful strike, but the damage was done. Blood seeped from his wound, and the venom coursed through his veins. "You dare!" King Eze growled, his voice weakening. He staggered but managed to steady himself, his trident still glowing faintly. His eyes burned with defiance. "Kill him!" Princess Eze shouted to her merman warriors, fear and desperation evident in her tone. The warriors surged forward, their weapons gleaming. But the king, using the last reserves of his strength, raised his trident high. With a final, thunderous roar, he unleashed a massive energy blast. The room filled with light as the wave of power obliterated the approaching merman army. When the light faded, King Eze fell to his knees, the trident slipping from his grasp. He collapsed, lifeless, amidst the bodies of the fallen warriors. Princess Eze stood in stunned silence, her serpent coiling nervously at her side. She surveyed the devastation, her breath shaky. Despite the loss of her merman soldiers, a cruel smile spread across her face. "The king is dead," she whispered. "Odamurai is mine." The remaining subjects, their spirits broken, emerged from the shadows. One by one, they bowed to her, their new queen. The serpent slithered to her side, its voice a whisper in her ear. "We paid a heavy price, princess. But victory is ours." Princess Eze's smile faltered for a moment as she gazed at the ruins around her. Then, with her head held high, she declared, "Let the new era of Odamurai begin." After hours of waiting in the calm shelter, the storm finally passed. Eze Mmiri and Adaobi continued their journey, eventually reaching the edge of the land and sea, where the cave of the love bracelets was said to lie. The entrance was hidden beneath a veil of seaweed, but Eze Mmiri's sharp eyes found it quickly. He gestured for Adaobi to follow him. "This is it," Eze Mmiri said, his voice reverberating with excitement. "The cave where the love bracelets are hidden." Adaobi felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. She glanced at her belly, feeling the small life growing inside her. "I'm ready," she said softly, determination flooding her voice. Let's do this. Inside the cave, the water was still, and the light from their surroundings cast eerie shadows on the walls. The deeper they swam, the more the water seemed to hum with ancient magic. At the far end of the cave stood a pedestal made of coral, and upon it rested the two love bracelets, one gold, one silver, each carved with intricate symbols of the land and the sea. Adaobi reached out, her hand trembling as she touched the first bracelet. The moment her skin brushed against it, the cave seemed to come alive. The water swirled around them, and a soft melody echoed in the distance. "This is it," Adaobi whispered in awe. "This is the magic." Eze Mmiri nodded, his heart racing. "Place it on your wrist, Adaobi. We have no other choice." With a deep breath, Adaobi slid the bracelet onto her wrist. The moment it touched her skin, the magic surged through her body. She gasped as a sharp pain shot through her legs, and before her eyes they began to change. Her human legs melded into a tail, shimmering with iridescent scales. It was a painful transformation, but it was also beautiful, like the water itself. Mmiri gasped in wonder. "You are perfect, Adaobi. You are now one with the sea." With the love bracelets in hand, they began their journey back to Odai. Before returning to the kingdom, Adaobi insisted on visiting her parents. They had to know that her life had changed forever. Ever since Adaobi left for her new life in the underwater kingdom, her mother's heart felt an emptiness she couldn't shake. Despite Adaobi's promise that she was happy and safe with Eze Mmiri, her mother still went to the riverbank every night, longing for even a glimpse of her beloved daughter. One cool, quiet evening, Adaobi's father noticed her sitting by the riverbank, her eyes fixed on the water. "You've been doing this every night," he said gently. "I can't help it," she replied, her voice trembling. "I know she's gone, but a part of me keeps hoping she'll come back." Touched by her sorrow, he decided to join her. That night, hand in hand, they stood by the river, the moonlight reflecting off the calm surface of the water. "We'll call to her," her father suggested softly. "Maybe she'll hear us." Her mother nodded, her voice carrying through the still night as she began to sing a familiar lullaby. It was a song she used to hum to Adaobi when she was a little girl, a melody filled with love and longing. Her father joined in, his deep voice blending with hers in harmony. The river seemed to respond to their song. The gentle ripples turned into soft waves, and the air carried a faint hum, as though the water itself was alive with energy. Then they noticed a movement, a shadow beneath the surface, growing larger and closer. Her mother's breath caught in her throat. Could it be? The water swirled, and moments later, two figures emerged. A tall, majestic merman with shimmering golden scales held the hand of a stunning mermaid whose iridescent tail gleamed under the moonlight. It was Adaobi. "Mother, father," Adaobi called, her voice filled with joy and emotion. She swam to the shore, her face radiant. Her mother fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Adaobi, is it really you?" she whispered, reaching out to touch her daughter's hand. "It's me, Mama," Adaobi said, holding her mother's hands tightly. "I couldn't stay away for too long. I needed to see you." Her father's voice was thick with emotion. "We've missed you, my daughter." Adaobi smiled warmly. "I've missed you too. But I couldn't come sooner. The journey back to the river isn't easy for me now." The merman beside her stepped forward, his presence commanding yet kind. "I am Eze Mmiri," he said with a respectful bow. "Your daughter's husband." Adaobi's father nodded, studying the merman. "You've taken good care of her." "With my life," Eze Mmiri replied earnestly. Her mother wiped her tears, a small smile breaking through. "I see the love in your eyes, Eze Mmiri. Thank you for bringing her back, even if just for a moment." Adaobi spoke softly. "I can't stay long, Mama, but I wanted you to know I'm happy and I'm safe. And soon," she hesitated, placing a hand on her belly. "You'll be grandparents." Her parents gasped, their faces lighting up with both shock and delight. "Yes," Adaobi said, tears glistening in her eyes. "A part of me and a part of him. I promise I'll come back one day so you can meet them." The family shared a tearful embrace at the edge of the water. But as the night deepened, Adaobi and Eze Mmiri knew it was time to return to the sea. "Goodbye, Mama." "Goodbye, Papa," Adaobi said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'll see you again." Her mother held her hand one last time, reluctant to let go. "We'll always be here, Adaobi. Whenever you can, come back to us." With a heavy heart, Adaobi and Eze Mmiri sank back into the water, disappearing beneath the waves. Her parents watched the ripples fade, their hearts aching but filled with hope. From that day on, they returned to the riverbank every night, not with sadness, but with joy and anticipation for the day their daughter would return again. As Eze Mmiri and Adaobi neared the kingdom of Odai, they heard the news of a violent attack on the royal family. Queen Eze Mmiri, with the help of her father and a powerful evil sea serpent, had launched a devastating assault on Odai. Eze Mmiri's heart sank as he heard that his father, King Eze had been killed in the battle. His kingdom was in ruins, and his family had been scattered. "We have to go back," Eze Mmiri said urgently, his voice filled with dread. "We must protect our people." Adaobi nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "Our child, we cannot let Eze Mmiri win." They swam toward Odai, but it was too late. The kingdom had fallen into the hands of Eze Mmiri and her father, and the royal family was in exile. Eze Mmiri and Adaobi sought refuge in a faraway underwater kingdom. Back in Odai, Queen Eze Mmiri gave birth to a son with golden scales and piercing eyes. The event was celebrated as a symbol of her dominion over the kingdom. She married a powerful ally, the father of her child, this union further solidifying her rule. At dawn, Queen Eze sat on a throne carved from black coral, her newborn son swaddled in shimmering seaweed. The child cooed softly, oblivious to the tension that hung in the water around them. Eze's dark eyes glinted with pride as she ran a finger across his tiny cheek. The room, filled with her loyal subjects and guards, seemed colder, darker, as though the shadows of her conquests lingered still. A sudden ripple disturbed the water, heralding the arrival of the serpent seer. The creature, a twisted amalgamation of snake and merfolk, slithered forward. Its scaled body shimmered with an eerie glow, and its unblinking eyes fixed on the princess and her child. "Queen Eze," the seer hissed, its voice like the whisper of shifting sand. "I come with a warning from the currents of fate itself." Eze did not flinch, though her grip on her son tightened. "Speak," she commanded, her voice cold and imperious. The seer coiled itself before her, its forked tongue flicking out as if tasting the water for truth. "Beware the child born of love," it intoned, each word dripping with venom. "He will rise against you. He will destroy all you've built, leaving nothing but ruins and sorrow in his wake." A murmur rippled through the gathered courtiers, their faces etched with fear and suspicion. Eze Mmiri, however, remained unmoved. She rose slowly, her form regal and commanding. The newborn stirred in her arms, sensing the shift in his mother's energy. "Let them come," Eze said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "I will crush them just as I crushed their king. No prophecy, no child, and no force in this ocean can stand against me." The seer tilted its head, its expression unreadable. "Prophecies are stubborn things, Your Highness. They bend for no one, not even a queen." "Then I'll break them," Eze snapped. She stepped closer to the seer, her eyes blazing. "You speak of love. Do you think me weak? Love is a chain and I have severed it. I will mold this child into a weapon, a force loyal only to me. His destiny is mine to command." The serpent seer regarded her silently, its gaze unreadable. Then, with a flick of its tail, it began to retreat. "We shall see, Queen of the Waters," it said, its voice trailing off as it disappeared into the shadows of the chamber. "We shall see." As the seer's presence faded, Eze turned to her most trusted general, a fearsome merman named Odoka, who stood silently by her side. His spear was etched with runes of protection, his expression grim. "Double the palace guard," Eze ordered, her tone leaving no room for argument. "No one gets near my son without my permission. I want the seer watched. If it dares speak of treachery again, silence it." "Yes, my queen," Odoka said, bowing deeply. She shifted her gaze to the child in her arms, her voice softening. "My son, you are mine, and you will inherit everything I've built. No shadow of the past, no whisper of love, will ever harm you." But even as she spoke, a flicker of doubt crept into her mind, unbidden and unwelcome. The seer's words lingered like a haunting melody, and for the first time, the invincible Queen Ifeme felt the faintest chill of uncertainty. In the sprawling coral halls of a neighboring underwater kingdom, the waters buzzed with life, but for Eze and Eze Mmiri, there was little solace. Their hearts carried the weight of their escape from Odai, the sorrow of their father's sacrifice still fresh. Eze sat silently near a glowing kelp grove, her usually bright eyes dulled with grief. Thoa paced restlessly, his hand clenched tightly around the hilt of his father's dagger. "Do you think anyone else survived?" Eze finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Thoa paused, his jaw tightening. "I don't know," he admitted. "But we have to believe that father's sacrifice wasn't in vain. He wanted us to live, to fight another day." As if summoned by those very words, the water around them stirred suddenly, signaling the arrival of someone. Both siblings turned sharply, their eyes widening as two familiar figures swam into view. It was Eze Mmiri and Adaobi. "Brother!" Thoa exclaimed, the sorrow on his face breaking into a mixture of shock and relief. He surged forward, wrapping his arms around Eze Mmiri in a tight embrace. "We thought you were lost." Eze, too, swam closer, her eyes glistening with tears. "We thought they'd taken you," she said, her voice trembling. "That Odai had swallowed you whole." Mmiri's expression was grim, his long hair flowing like dark currents around him. He rested a firm hand on his brother Eze's shoulder. "Odai is lost," he said, his voice heavy with resolve. "Now. But we'll reclaim it. Together." Adaobi, swimming gracefully beside him, placed a gentle hand on her swollen belly, her face radiating both weariness and hope. "We have a future to fight for," she said softly, her words cutting through the despair like a beacon. "For our child, for all of us." Thoa's eyes flicked to Adaobi's belly, and for the first time in weeks, a flicker of hope touched his face. "A child?" he asked, his voice low with wonder. "Yes," Adaobi replied, a faint smile gracing her lips. "A new generation. Proof that life can continue, even after all we've lost." Thoa turned to Eze Mmiri, his determination hardening. "Then we have no choice. We can't let them grow up in exile. We'll train, we'll build alliances. Whatever it takes to reclaim Odai." Eze, though still pale with grief, nodded. "We owe it to father, to everyone who fell protecting us. We can't let win." Mmiri's gaze swept over his siblings, his expression both proud and resolute. "We'll start here," he said. "This kingdom has resources, warriors who sympathize with our cause. We'll rally them. When the time is right, we'll strike." "But what if Ifeme finds us first?" Eze asked, her voice wavering. "She won't stop hunting us. You know she won't." "She'll try," Mmiri said, his voice steady and unyielding. "But this time we'll be ready. We've lost our home, but we haven't lost our will to fight." Adaobi reached out, taking Eze's hand gently. "And we haven't lost each other," she said. "That's our greatest strength." The four of them swam in silence for a moment, the enormity of their task settling over them. But in that quiet, a bond was forged, stronger than grief, stronger than fear. They were no longer just survivors. They were a family bound by a shared purpose, determined to reclaim not just their home, but their legacy. In the months that followed their reunion, the exiled royals of Odai worked tirelessly to rebuild their strength and strategize for the battles yet to come. Adaobi, though heavy with child, became the heart of their refuge, offering warmth and hope to the weary merfolk who had fled with them. Her presence was a constant reminder that even in the darkest waters, life could find a way to thrive. Ewa and Eze trained daily, their movements swift and deliberate as they honed their skills. Mmiri watched them with pride and determination, often joining in the drills. Every stroke, every strike must count, he reminded them. When the time comes, we cannot afford hesitation. One stormy evening, Adaobi went into labor. The waters around their sanctuary seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy as she brought new life into the world. The birth was arduous, but when her cries of pain gave way to the soft coos of her newborn son, the entire kingdom seemed to hold its breath. The child was extraordinary, a perfect blend of land and sea. His hair shimmered with hues of ocean blue, while his skin bore the warm undertones of Adaobi's lineage. Tiny fins adorned his arms and legs, and his eyes glowed with an uncanny light, as if reflecting both the depths of the sea and the vastness of the skies above. Mmiri cradled his son in his arms, his usually stern features softening as he gazed at the infant. A symbol of hope, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. He will bridge the worlds of land and sea, uniting what was torn apart. Adaobi, exhausted but radiant, smiled weakly. He's our legacy, Eze. Proof that love can endure, even in the face of hatred and destruction. The news of the child's birth spread quickly among the exiles, and for the first time in months, a sense of celebration filled the waters. Thoa lifted a shell horn to his lips, blowing a triumphant note that echoed through the kingdom. This is the beginning of our return, he declared. Odai will hear of this child, and they will know that we have not given up. Eze, though smiling, remained cautious. Mmiri will hear of him too, she said quietly. She'll see him as a threat. Mmiri's expression darkened at the mention of Eze Mmiri. Let her hear, he said firmly. Let her tremble at the thought of what's coming. We will protect him and we will protect each other. Odai's throne will be ours again. But even as the exiles celebrated, shadows gathered in the waters beyond their sanctuary. Far away, in the blackened palace of Odai, the waters churned with an unnatural energy. The once bright kingdom, now cloaked in shadows, reflected the ominous rule of its queen. Queen Eze Mmiri sat regally on her throne carved from dark coral and embedded with shards of glowing obsidian. Her fingers tapped rhythmically against the cold armrest, the sound echoing eerily in the silent chamber. Beside her, the serpent seer coiled in lazy loops, its milky eyes glimmering with foreboding. Its forked tongue flicked, carrying whispers of the future. A child has been born, it hissed, the words slithering through the air like a curse. A child of love, a bridge between worlds. His blood carries the strength to shatter your rule. Mmiri's piercing eyes narrowed, her fingers freezing mid-tap. A child, she repeated, her voice low and dangerous. What child could dare threaten me? The serpent's coils tightened, its gaze unblinking and cold. This is no ordinary child, my queen. He is the heir of Eze Mmiri and the human woman. His birth was foretold by the ancients. His bloodline merges the power of the sea and the resilience of the land. He is destiny's answer to your reign. Mmiri's lips curled into a sneer, masking the flicker of fear that raced through her. Then he will die, she said, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. Before he grows strong enough to challenge me. The seer tilted its head, its milky eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Beware, my queen, it whispered, its tone heavy with caution. This child is more than a threat. His birth has awakened forces older and stronger than you can imagine. Forces that even I cannot foresee. Mmiri rose abruptly, her gown of black scales cascading around her like a storm. Her presence was commanding, her beauty fierce and terrifying. Gather my generals, she commanded, her voice ringing with authority. We will find them wherever they hide, and crush them before they have a chance to rise. The serpent remained motionless, its words softer now but no less chilling. The winds of fate are shifting, my queen. The path you take may lead to ruin, or perhaps something worse. Mmiri's laugh echoed through the chamber, sharp and laced with malice. Ha 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 ha. Ruin. Fate bends to my will, not the other way around. I am the queen of Odai, and no child will dictate my destiny." As the serpent fell silent, shadows began to stir at the edges of the chamber. Her generals, a formidable assembly of mere warriors and dark water spirits, entered the room, their expressions hardened and loyal. Fme wasted no time. "Find him," she ordered, her voice resonating with power. "Scour the seas, the rivers, and the land. Let no stone remain unturned. I want this child and his parents brought to me, alive if possible, but dead if necessary." The generals bowed deeply, their armor glinting in the dim light, before swiftly departing. The serpent seer lingered, its warning still hanging heavy in the air. In the depths of her mind, and couldn't shake the serpent's words. Forces older and stronger than her, her fists clenched. "Let them come," she whispered to herself, her voice like a hiss. "I will crush them all." Far away, in a hidden underwater sanctuary, Eze Mmiri and Adaobi cradled their newborn son, oblivious to the storm brewing in Odai. The child, half human and half merman, radiated an aura of power even in his infancy. His shimmering tail, golden like his father's, glowed softly in the dim water, and his small hands grasped at the world around him with an uncanny determination. Adaobi gazed at him, a mixture of awe and worry clouding her features. "Do you think we can protect him?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Mmiri placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We must," he said firmly. "He is our hope, Adaobi. And perhaps, the hope of all who have suffered under Ifeme's tyranny." Unbeknownst to them, ancient eyes were watching. In the farthest reaches of the ocean, hidden forces began to stir, awakened by the birth of the child. The currents carried whispers of his existence, and allies and enemies alike were beginning to move. The sanctuary was calm for now, but the air was thick with tension. Adaobi held her son closer, her heart heavy with both love and fear. The child's soft coos were a stark contrast to the danger that loomed. Mmiri turned toward the distant waters, his golden trident glowing faintly. He could feel it too, the pull of destiny drawing them toward an inevitable confrontation. "Ome won't stop," he murmured, his jaw tightening. "But neither will we." As the tides churned and fate wove its threads, the underwater world held its breath, awaiting the next chapter in the battle for Odai.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to stay connected by leaving your thoughts in the comments, giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when a new content drops. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you in the next video.